In the last video, we learned the main dimensioning tools for AutoCAD. In this video, we are going to continue on and learn a few more dimensioning tools. Next to the main dimensioning tools is the quick dimension. I'm not a big fan of quick dimensioning. Basically how it works, I can select these items, hit enter, and I can place all of those dimensions at one time. I'm a little more picky and I like to think about how I dimension instead of just letting it automatically do it. But again, that is a tool that you can use. Again, you notice what it did. It didn't leave, even though I didn't select this very end, because I selected this piece, it still went ahead and did all the dimensions. So I would have to delete this dimension out to get rid of that. You have some other tools here. You have baseline type dimensioning. Over here, you have some other little tools. This one is a break, if you need to do a break line in your dimension. This one you can adjust some spacing. This one is a jog line. You can inspect, update. If for some reason you change something to your dimension style and it doesn't update, you can click on this and pick all of the dimensions and it will update them for you, but AutoCAD pretty well does that for you. Now, one really nice thing about dimensioning is that it is associative. So say I need to come in here and I need to make this piece bigger. If I use my stretch command and I drag it over, you see it associates it to that. There are ways that you can set parameters and you can lock them so that if it's a part that you never ever want it to change, you can do that. Again, if I need to say that this is a certain kind of hole, I can come in here, I can come to move my cursor down at the end, and I can go up here to my symbol and making sure my cursor is all the way over to the other side. I go to my symbol, I can put in whatever symbol I want and close my text editor, and I have my text symbol in there. So again, AutoCAD will tell you diameter and radius, but it won't do things like 2 times or through, things like that. You'll have to add that to it. If I wanted to say this hole went all the way through, I could just come in here and type in through so that I have that covered. The next thing that we need to look at is our multileader. This is for our notes. We talked about notes in the 57 rules dimension video. This is an actual dimension here, but your multileader is something for your text if you want to put in specific notes. If you want to do general notes, you're just going to use your multi-line text. If you want to do a keynote or a specific note, you'll need to do this. Again, we need to go in and set this because you can see right now it's set for standard. We don't want standard because we want it to be annotative. So if I go into annotative and I come down here to my arrow and I go in and I do modify, this one doesn't have as many options as your dimensioning does, but it does have where you can change the leader to be the dot like we saw yesterday or whatever. You can change how many points it comes out to. And here is the important one. Again, you see we have standard text style. We want to make sure that that is annotative so everything comes out the same. I'm going to go ahead and set that as my current and close. So say I need to say something about this piece. If I go to my multileader and I'm just going to pick a point of where I want it to point to, and if I turn my ortho off, I can come down here at an angle and I can just type in whatever I want to type. And again, I can just modify that like I do my text. It takes me back to my exact same text ribbon. I can do multi-leaders just like that. So say I need this to point to more than one thing, but I don't want to do 2 notes. Right up here, I have add leader. So if I pick on this, you'll see now I can come over here and pick another one. And I can keep adding leaders to it as I want to. Then I decide I need to remove one of them. So if I click on it and hit enter, I can remove a leader. It gives me a lot of flexibility. One other thing I wanted to talk about on dimensioning, again, if we go into, let's say, this 3.750, when I go into it and I double click on it, you'll see right here is highlighted the associative dimension to what I dimensioned to. I have to be really careful, especially like on notes like this where I go in and I manually add something, that I don't get rid of this associative information. If I were to delete that and I were to come in and put in my diameter symbol and put in 0.52, it looks the same. And you wouldn't know that that was not an associative dimension. But if I take this circle and I decrease it, or increase it in this case, you'll see that number did not change. So that is the bad thing about manually changing information. So again, if I do the same thing here, if I go in and change this to 3.750 and I stretch this out or in, that dimension stays the same. So do not get rid of the associative dimension. You can also check your dimensions. If something doesn't look quite right, you can go to properties and you can see that you have the right kind of text style. Is it annotative? Yes. Is it at the right annotative scale? Things like that. You can actually go in here and change just that one arrow to a dot. So your properties, again, you can do lots of different things with that, and you can check to make sure things are doing what they're supposed to do. Annotative scale is nice when it works. I have a suggestion on how to make it work easily for you. Before I ever put a dimension or any text on a drawing, I want to make sure that I set it to the appropriate annotation scale. In theory, as I've mentioned before, AutoCAD should, if I change annotation scales, it should adjust everything accordingly. But it doesn't do a real good job at that. Sometimes it picks and chooses what it wants to adjust. Other times it throws everything way out of proportion compared to what you thought it was going to be. So it's very, very important to make sure that you set your annotation scale before you ever start putting dimensions or notes on your drawings. So when we started this drawing, we set our annotation scale at 1:1. So for this drawing, that is good. If I go and I look at my layout tab, which we haven't got into this yet, but you'll notice here my annotation scale is set to 1:1. If I were to come in here and measure a piece of text in here, you'll see that it's right at 0.125, which is what I want it to be. For this one, this particular drawing, say I want to do it at 2:1. So before I ever start drawing, even though they're in the same drawing, I want to change my annotation scale. So over here, if I go to 2:1, pay attention to the dimensions on the other drawing, you see they changed. That's okay, because those are set for our paper space to be at 1:1. And this drawing, I'm going to do it 2:1. So I'm going to add some dimensions. You can see when I switch back to 1:1 that they are different sizes again. But where it's important is right here. Here they are at 0.125, and when I come in here to measure, they should be at 0.125 also. Setting your annotation scale appropriately is the key to dimensioning and text. Next, we are going to go to your assignment and look how you are going to be utilizing what you have learned about dimensioning